Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Yutet Amud Aleph, 12 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Umay Kasabar. Today's Amud is being learned as a zchut for Ruf'a Shel Ma Rachel, Simcha Bat Nahid, Ashtafur Ruf'a Shel Ma Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. Also has been dedicated for Ruf'a Shel Ma of Gavriel Chaim ben Eliza, Shtar Ruf'a Shelema, and Eliza bat Linda, that shall have Ruf'a Shelema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This month's learnings of the community has been dedicated graciously by the Dayan family, by Kohen family, by Shei family. Should be an ultimate zchut for all their families. Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Okay, we learned a halacha up on top of the Amud, 8 lines down from the top of the Amud yesterday. From really the source of it, from Sifri, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, that we spoke about the period, the interim period after the Churban, before the destruction of Beitar. Rabbi Yishmael asked the question, what's the halacha if somebody wants to bring Maser Sheni and eat it in Yerushalayim? Should you be doing that? Yerushalayim was still there. It was operational. The Beit HaMikdash was not there. Unfortunately, it was destroyed. But the strong presence of Jewish communities was there. You had the element that you needed. It says, after all, the same generation as the Mikdash. Can you not? It will be applicable nowadays too. Rabbi Yishmael says, no, you can't do it. So the attempt of Rabbi Yishmael initially was to learn it from a Mamatzinu, from Bechor, or from Bikurim. Those were the two attempts. Then the Gemara actually learned it from Hekesh, and it was a completely different limud. But now the Gemara is going to ask, wait, Rabbi Yishmael is scratching his head. He has a safek by Maser Sheni, but it is pashut for him by Bechor, right? That's exactly how his logical discourse developed. He said, wait, you can't eat Bechor in Yerushalayim, so let's learn from that to Maser Sheni, that you shouldn't be able to eat it because the Beit HaMikdash. Who told him that you can't eat Bechor? Maybe you could also eat Bechor in Yerushalayim. So what exactly is the background mindset of Rabbi Yishmael? Now, you tell me, well, how can you do Bechor? Because for Bechor you have to do what? Shchita, and you have to do Mizbeach, right? Correct? But here is the catch. If Yerushalayim is Kadosh, then when the Beit HaMikdash is not there, what did they do before the time of Shlomo Melech? They had Bamot, they had private Mizbeach. There is such a thing as Heter HaBamot. So if Yerushalayim is standing in its glory of Kedusha, just build your own Mizbeach and do it. So what exactly is the mindset of Rabbi Yishmael in the all-time famous machloket of Kedusha Rishona, Kedusha L'Sha'ata, Velo La'atid Lavo? Or maybe Kedusha Rishona, Kedusha L'Sha'ata, U'Le'atid Lavo. When Ezra, it's the second Beit HaMikdash, without getting too much into the discussion of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech and the first Beit HaMikdash, when Ezra Sofer went down, when they initiated the building of the second Beit HaMikdash, was that sanctification of Yerushalayim an eternal sanctification, or was it only so long as the Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash, is a standing? And that is a machloket all across Shas. Kedusha Rishona, the initial, doesn't mean first. Let's talk about Ezra. The initial Kedusha that was created, was it an eternal thing to be had even after the destruction? Or maybe it was contingent on the Beit HaMikdash. And says the Gemara, however you slice it, I don't understand Rabbi Yishmael. Because if it is eternal Kedusha, so who cares about the Beit HaMikdash being destroyed? Just build your own private Bama Mizbeach, bring your Bechor. So who said that Bechor you don't bring and you don't eat in Yerushalayim? You should. Right? And
I thought after the base of Mikdash was built, or in Yerushalayim was established, private behemoths were out forever.
that's correct. Well, so long as the Beit HaMikdash is there, if the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, then you don't have that. If you have that, you can't do it at home. If you don't have that, so then who says not? The Heter Abamot is contingent on that. So now the Gemara says, and if you tell me that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim was contingent on the Beit HaMikdash, then once the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, you should have the same question by Bechor. It should be the same thing as Maaser. They both have Kedusha, they both have to be brought to Yerushalayim. It really should depend on whether or not you have Kedushat Yerushalayim. So let's learn this inside as the Gemara develops this question. It says, "My kasavar," right? 12 lines up from the bottom. Oh my God, what does Rabbi Ishmael actually hold in regards to the Kedusha status of Yerushalayim? If he holds it is an eternal, non-contingent Kedusha, has nothing to do with the destruction. So therefore nowadays also we have it. So then, says the Gemara, Afilu Bechor Nami. You should be able to do the Bechor as well. Build your own Mizbeach, right? So the Gemara, Ikasavar Kedusha Rishona Kidesha Leshata Velol Kidesha Latid Lavo. And if he holds that the Kedusha is contingent and therefore it's not there after the destruction, so then Afilu Bechor Nami Tibaile. He should have the same question by Bechor. How in the world did you get to a situation that the Maaser is scratching his head? It's like, what's the din by Maaser Sheni? But Bechor is Pashut for him. Why is the difference? Says the Gemara, Amar Ravina. Ravina, the co-author of the Gemara, says in the Gemara, Leolam kasavar kidusha l'shata v'lo kidusha la'atid lavo. Really, Rabbi Ishmael holds that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim was contingent on Beit HaMikdash, and therefore it's not an eternal Kedusha. It's not there. It's no longer there after the destruction. So what's the question? In other words, why do you not have the same question, the same quandary about the Bechor? Says the Gemara, and in this case, bebechor shenizrak damo kodem churban habayit, we really need the Beit HaMikdash, right? But here is a case that we kind of had the Beit HaMikdash. Well, how so? This is like a real Tisha B'Av Gemara. It was written on Tisha B'Av. You brought the Bechor on Tisha B'Av morning, right? Before the destruction, before they burnt the Mizbeach and the Echal, and you spilled the blood, you did whatever it is that you need to do by Matan Damim of the Bechor, and now you have the meat. It's ready to be eaten. So you don't need, practically speaking, you don't need the Beit HaMikdash, because I shechted it in Beit HaMikdash, I put the blood on the Mizbeach, all the things that, now I have the meat sitting in my refrigerator. Can I eat it? Right? Do I need the Beit HaMikdash for eating it? Do I? I would say maybe not, because the process of, the physical process of what I needed the Beit HaMikdash for is done. Shechita has to be there. Good, we did it. Zerika, Matan Damim, right? Kabbalah, Zerika, all of that has been done. I'm ready to eat this, and then now they burnt it. No, the Beit HaMikdash is no longer there. Is my eating contingent on the Beit HaMikdash also? The eating of the Kodashim? So says the Gemara, Ve'adayim besaro kayav. Still the flesh is there, the meat is there. U'makshinan besaro ledamo. And we compare, we make a hekesh between the blood and the flesh. How so? If you take a look at Rashi on the side, it'll tell you, Dechtiv ve'damam tizrok ala mizbeach. And right after it says, U'besaram yelecha. He compares the dam with the flesh. So says the Gemara, Mad damo b'mizbeach, af besaro b'mizbeach. Just like the blood has to be spilled when the Beit HaMikdash is there, the basar, the flesh, also has to be eaten when the Beit HaMikdash is there. So even though that technically speaking, I don't need the Beit HaMikdash because I did my process in the morning, right now I want to eat it, the Beit HaMikdash is burnt, can't do it. Can't do it. Because it's contingent through the fact that the Pasuk compares the process of the blood with the process of eating Besaram Yelecha, that you will eat the basar, you will eat the meat of the korban. Right? So says the Gemara, and then you have a second step. Right? You have a second step that we compare now the Bechor with Maser Sheni. How so? We learned the Pasuk, the same Pasuk that talks about Maser Sheni, Masar Degancha, Ubchorot Sonecha, right? Ubchorot Bekarecha. So the beginning of the Pasuk starts with Maser Sheni, the end of the Pasuk ends with Bechor. So in one Pasuk, it puts together in the same category, comparing Bechor with Maser. And now I know that in order to eat Maser Sheni, you need to have Beit HaMikdash standing. So even though that you bring Maser Sheni from Haifa, from Tel Aviv, and you don't need, you just eat it in Yerushalayim, you don't need to take it to Beit HaMikdash or anything, but the halacha is not applicable when the Beit HaMikdash is not standing and operational. Right? That's how we learn. Now, do you realize what we just did? What we did was, we learned B from A and C from B. There's two different processes of learning through hekesh, through comparison. In other words, I don't know that I can't eat the flesh of korban, of bechor, when the Beit HaMikdash is not standing. I don't know that. I only know it from the blood, because we compared it in the same pasuk. So this is learned from this. And now you want this, who is not written directly, who itself is learned from something else, you want it to teach for something else, a third thing. Can you do that? Well, in Masechet Zvachim, all across Kochim, one of the laws of Kochim is, and this is so geschmack, we're learning like Masechet Makkot, but we're learning all this like Kochim halachot for korbanot, as a tremendous thing. Actually, the Chafetz Chaim writes in the beginning of his Hakdama, how important it is to learn about Kochim, because it's a mitzvot that we don't unfortunately have nowadays, and the way to do them, the way it is considered that you're doing them, is by learning the halachot. It's a tremendous thing. It's a tremendous thing. So the one law of regular kochim halachot is in Masechet Zevachim, the Gemara darshins, that something that it itself has been learned from something else, not directly written, cannot be a teacher for something else, a third item. You can't do that in kochim. In chulin you could do that. In non-holy items, you could do it. But by kochim, things have to be written directly, or you could have one stop of learning something through hekesh from something else. But a halakha that you learned from a comparison, from a hekesh, cannot by itself teach for a third item that's also not written. How many steps can you have? One. Can't have a second step that I learned this from that, and now this is going to teach for this. Can't do that. But isn't that what exactly we just did? We learned the flesh, the meat of Bechor from the dam, from the blood, and now you want this to be a teacher for Maser Sheni. Can't do that, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, V'chi davar alamed behekesh, something that in itself needs hekesh to be learned, Choserum lamed behekesh, can be teaching for some other halakha through comparison, hekesh? We don't. That's what we learned in Masechet Zvachim. Mara says, yes, you're correct, but Maser Sheni is not hekesh. Even though that Maser Sheni has quote-unquote kedusha, but it's not kochim, it's produce, it's a bunch of grain or fruits, right? It's not considered kochim 101. So therefore, it's not korbanot, it's not kochim. So therefore, you could do that. It's considered chulin. And by chulin, we could learn hekesh from hekesh, no problem, right?
Do you have to be tahor to eat Meiser Sheni?
We'll get that in 5 minutes, right? That's exactly the next piece of the Gemara. So says the Gemara over here. I'm learning Hekesh from Hekesh because it's Chulin, right? Maaser Sheni is not quote unquote Kachim. It's not the level of Korbanot. It's not Kachim, right? So Gemara says, fine, Kibanu Mesirat Amudah, I accept it. Very good. But Lemaaseh, you are missing one element over here. What is the element that we're missing? What did we learn Maaser Sheni from? Can someone help me over here? From Hekesh, from the meat of Korban Bechor, which is Kachim. That's for sure Kachim. So it's still one end of this is Kachim. Maaser is not Kachim maybe, but Bechor is Kachim. So you're teaching from Bechor to Maaser, you're learning Maaser from Bechor, which is Kachim. Still you have Kachim over here. So the Gemara says, Maaser Dagan Chulinhu. It's Chulin, you could learn it. And the Gemara right away jumps at it. Hanicha leman Amar, batar lamedas dinan. In that machloket in Masechet Zevachim that I just mentioned a minute ago, that you can't have two stops of learning a Hekesh, a comparison, from another comparison from a Hekesh, the Gemara there itself has a machloket. What exactly, is it two sides Kochim? Is it one side Kochim? What if, like our case over here, one side of it is Kochim, one side of it is Chulin? Can I do a second Hekesh? Can I learn a second comparison? Right? So one Manda Amar says, we always look at what you're learning. If what you're learning too, the halakha that you want to learn, if that is by Chulin, by non-Kochim, by regular produce, you can learn Hekesh from Hekesh, no problem. Even if the one that's teaching it, where the source you learn from is going to be Kochim. So if you have Kochim and you're learning from it to Chulin, you could do a second Hekesh, no problem. But there's another Manda Amar that holds, no, we always go after what you're learning from. If what you're learning from is Kochim, you can't do a second Hekesh, sorry. So according to that Manda Amar, what do you do with our case? This, Bechor, the meat of Bechor, we learned it from the dam, the blood of Bechor. It's both Kochim, right? And now you want to learn from this, which is Kochim, to Chulin. You can't do that, according to this Manda Amar. Because you go after what you're learning from, not what you're learning to. How do you deal with that? Says the Gemara. Let's learn this through. It's good, according to the Manda Amar, that you go after what you're learning to, what the halakha that you are trying to learn. But if you say we go after what you're learning from the teacher, not the halakha that's being learned, you're learning from meat of Kochim, what's Besar of Bechor. That's for sure Kochim. Mara says, correct. But there's one element that we missed. The truth is, the way the Gemara mentioned it, presented it, was you're learning the meat of Bechor from the blood of Bechor. So that's one Hekesh. And Maaser is now the second Hekesh. No, who says? Meat and blood is the same thing. It's really not, you don't even need a Hekesh to learn the meat from the blood. They're the one and the same animal. You literally shechted it, and the blood of it is matan damim, and now the meat of it it's the same thing. It's not even considered Hekesh. It's much more direct than Hekesh. It's considered as one unit. So you don't need Hekesh to learn that. Therefore, the Maaser that you're learning from Bechor is the first Hekesh. And first Hekesh you could do from Kochim, right? No problem. You could learn something from Kochim with one Hekesh. Now it's not a second stop. It's the first stop, says the Gemara. That's fine. So therefore the Gemara says, Maika lememar damu basar chada miltahu. Is the same thing, and therefore I don't have any problems with it. So therefore we now know back to the beginning of the discussion that we had today, Rabbi Ishmael, who had this quandary about Maaser, now we understand why he had the question. And that he had how it works, that one of them, it was more pashut to him, and the other one, he wanted to know if you could learn or if you can't learn. Fine. Next item in the Mishnah was Kodshe Kodashim, that you cannot eat. If you eat Kodshe Kodashim, the highest level of Kodshim, like the Chatat Ola, if you do that, if you do that, then you get, it has to be within Kilaim, within the boundaries of Azara, the walls of Azara. If you eat it outside the walls of Azara, even in Yerushalayim, you get lashes. But then the Gemara says for Maaser Sheni as well. In other words, this is the Mishnah that we had in Daf Yud Zayin. The Gemara says in Yud Zayin, Amud Aleph, Kochim kalim u'maaser sheni chutz lachoma. If you eat maaser sheni outside the walls of Yerushalayim, you get lashes, right? This is what it says in the second Mishnah of the Perek, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. What's the big problem? The biggest problem with this is if you still are holding count and you remember what it said in Daf Yud Gimel, the first Mishnah of our Perek, what does it say over there? Maaser Sheni shelo nifteh. We already spoke in the first Mishnah about eating Maaser Sheni. And now you're saying it again. Why do you need to say Maaser Sheni twice? Same thing. Why are you saying it twice? So I'm going to ask this question. Tanina Chadazimna, we already learned Maaser Sheni in Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. We learned it in the first Mishnah of the Perek. So why do you need it a second time? What's the first time that we had it? Maaser Sheni ve'ektesh shelo niftu. That was the Mishnah in Daf Yud Gimel, the first Mishnah of the Perek, that Maaser Sheni and Hekdesh that were not redeemed, that the Kedusha was not transferred on money, if you eat it, you get lashes. So he spoke about Maaser Sheni. Why do you have to say it again? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yossi bar Chanina, Sefa b'Maaser Sheni tahor ve'gavra tahor, deka'achil chutz lechoma. Says the second Mishnah in Daf Yud Zayin is speaking about a Maaser Sheni which is proper. You didn't redeem it, nothing, right? And you are tahor. The Maaser Sheni, everything is tahor, but you're eating it outside Yerushalayim. Chutz lachoma, outside the walls of Yerushalayim. That's the first Mishnah. A Maaser Sheni shelo nifda. You're eating it without transferring its kedusha on money. It's kadosh. You can't eat it outside Yerushalayim. If you eat it outside Yerushalayim, you get lashes. So you said that. Why do you need the second one? That if you eat Maaser Sheni outside of the walls of Yerushalayim, you get lashes. You just told me that in Daf Yud Gimel. Says the Gemara, Sefa, by the second part, the first part, Deka Reisha, this was the second one we said. I said the order backwards. The Sefa is Maaser Sheni ve'ektesh lo niftu, and Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina is answering the Mishnah in Daf Yud Zayin. The second Mishnah is talking about when you are tahor, Maaser is tahor, you're eating it outside Yerusha. Reisha, Daf Yud Gimel, the first Mishnah is talking about a Maaser Sheni that's tameh, or the person is tameh that's eating it in Yerushalayim. So that's not outside Yerushalayim. You're eating it inside Yerushalayim, but you're tameh. You're eating it inside Yerushalayim, but it is tameh. Maaser Sheni is tameh. So not only you can't eat Maaser outside Yerushalayim, but you can't even eat Maaser Sheni inside Yerushalayim if it has been rendered invalid by becoming tameh, or that it is good but you're tameh. You can't do that. You do it, you get lashes. That is the first Mishnah. So it says the Gemara, how do you know? How in the world do you know that you can't eat Maaser Sheni that's tameh, or when the person is tameh? How do you know that tum'ah is a thing? How do you know that a Maaser Sheni tameh or a person tameh, you can't eat Maaser Sheni? Says the Gemara, The Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Lo bi'arti mimenu betame. The pasuk says in the vidui maaser, when you say Arami oved ami, one of the sentences that you say over there is Lo bi'arti mimenu betame. I did not destroy it or consume it. Betame. Lo bi'arti mimenu from it betame. So you see from here that I can't be tameh. It can't be tameh when I consume it, when I quote destroy it. And that's the source, says the Gemara, that you will get lashes if you are tameh, you eat it, or if it is tameh and you eat it. Ben shani tameh vehu tahor. Whether I am tameh and it is tahor, or reverse. Ben shani tahor, I am tahor, it is tameh, still asur, and you get lashes. Well, it says, Vehechan muzhar alachila. You want to punish him with malkut. Where does it say that you can't eat it tameh? You all of a sudden say, don't do it. If you do it, you get malkut. You have to give me azhara. Where does it explicitly say? You remember, we learned, azhara has to always be explicit. Where is explicit? That you can't do it. Right? The Gemara says, what? Where is it explicit? What are you talking about? It is explicit. Any yodea tumata guf, then when the Gemara screams at it, behead yaktiv. It is mamash written beferush. Nefesh asher tigabo v'tama'a ad ha'erev. If you become tameh, velo yochal mina kodashim, you cannot eat kachim. And this is kachim, right? So it says the Gemara, we know that if you're tameh, you cannot eat kachim. It says it explicitly, as explicit as it could be in the passage. Martha, no. That was not the question. That part I know. But how do you know that if Maser Sheni is tameh that you can't eat it? That's not explicit. And I need it to be explicit because in Masirin, Minadin, you have to have something clear. Says the Gemara, Ela Tum'at Atzmo Minayin. How do you know the Tum'at Atzmo of Maser Sheni? Says the Gemara, Lo tuchal liechol bish'arecha, because the pasuk says you can't eat it in your own cities, even in Eretz Yisrael. You have to bring it to Yerushalayim, and then it says Ulhalanu omer bish'arecha tochelenu hatameh vehatahor. That there it says that you have to eat it hatahor vehatameh, and we're going to see in the next shiur how the Gemara is going to learn from this explicitly that you cannot eat when Maaser Sheni is Tameh, even though that you are Tahor, you still cannot eat it, and therefore that would be the Azhara for it, which Be'ezrat Hashem we're going to be explaining in the next year.